Hello, welcome back. We are going to continue with Entitled. And my gosh, hold on. I got something plugged in here. Okay. It felt like hard slogging for me. I mean, we were only reading it wasn't even 36 minutes because I think the whole video was 36 minutes, but I was like yapping at the beginning and yapping at the end. Yesterday, I thought, you know what? Let's just not read this anymore. Because I feel like we're just getting to the point where it's sort of just reiterating like lots of money spent, monies for charities actually being siphoned into their accounts, and they're benefiting from so-called charitable works. And I'm like, okay, I have the point. I know now. Like, I know what it is. And again, this is no shade to Andrew Lowney. This is about my attention span. Andrew Lowney is doing God's work because let me tell you, I know there have been some reviews that are like, he's just reiterating stuff that was already written other places. Well, the beauty is that he is compiling. I mean, he's done a lot of his own research, but I think he read all of those books. Like, he read all of Sarah's books. He read the books, by her father, by Leslie Player, by the psychic, whatever her name was. I'm just like, he took one for the team because imagine slogging through every single, ugh, and then compiling it all so that we don't have to do that. I mean, that's incredible. Plus doing your own research, like outside of that, and doing interviews and stuff outside of all that. Oh my God, it would just overtake your life. So I have nothing but good things to say. And I know sometimes I've been like, the sentence structure is a little, but that's a me problem. That's a me problem. Also, I feel like the copy that we have, it almost seems like it's an unedited, like, I don't know. I'm going to have to repurchase this when I get some more money, when I'm not just such a poor student. I will repurchase it because I just feel like it's bootleg, but I don't know if it is or not. Anyway, well, how are you today? I hope you're doing well. I have to go to work soon, and girl, let me tell you, I'm out of toilet paper or toilet roll, whatever you want to call it. Like, that is the worst way to start your morning, Am I getting too personal? I feel like this is what we have together. I know it's not classy and it's not whatever, but we're beyond that, okay? This is like family talk, right? That's like the worst thing in the morning, when you have to get up and you use the bathroom first thing in the morning, you're like, and then you look and you're like, like, what a way to start your day. You're like, is this an omen of things to come? All right. Anyway, in regard to our, I think we're going to call it Silver Screen Sundays. I think that's cute. A little alliteration. What I'm going to do is, that I like reacting to things in the moment because I'm with you. You know what I mean? I don't like to have the inside scoop beforehand. I just think it's more fun to be like, oh, So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to choose films that I haven't seen. Obviously, like, I've seen a lot of classic films, so at some point there may be something that I have seen. But I'm choosing ones that are somehow in the public domain because I don't want to get a copyright strike, So what I will do is my nose is running. Ugh, why does it always start? I will record. I don't want to be like yapping the whole movie because I don't want to like be annoying, but I'll try to keep it to like, if you were sitting watching a movie with someone, there's like chitter chatter that goes on back and forth, like, oh, look at this. So I will do that. But then after I record that, I will go back and I will research the film a little bit, and then I will do an introduction, and then I'll do like an outro. So I guess what I'm saying is, if in the intro I seem to be completely knowledgeable, but during the film I seem to be completely clueless, that's why. because I will do the intro once I've watched the movie, because I don't want to know where the movie goes. I don't want to know the ending. I don't want to know what to expect. I just want to be surprised as we go along. So yeah, we're going to start this Sunday, Silver Screen Sundays, and I'm excited. That's going to be fun for me, and I hope it's fun for you too. Okay, now if you don't have a cup of tea, this is your cue to pause and go make yourself one, okay? Because we're about to settle in here and try to get some reading done. But not to worry, because we are starting part 7. And after this part, there's one more part. And then that's it. Okay. Now, part 7 is entitled The Fight Back. And this chapter, let me just make sure my mic is up enough. And this chapter is entitled, that went pretty well. Prince Andrew's office had been lobbied by news organizations to give an interview explaining the Virginia Giuffre case ever since the scandal broke. Few more determinedly than the respected BBC's Newsnight. In May 2019, 6 months after first being approached, Amanda Thirsk opened up negotiations with Newsnight's planning team, suggesting Andrew could talk about trade after Brexit, his projects, and Britain's place in the world. Yeah, that's what everyone wants to hear. Sure. It's like being in that world, like the world of PR, and it must be wild, because it's like they want to talk to you about Virginia Giuffre. They don't want to hear about Andrew's, opinions on trade after Brexit. But you're trying to spin it in this way, well, he'll talk to you, but maybe we could talk about this. It's like they don't just want to talk to you in general. They want to talk to you specifically about the nonsense you've been up to. I know they know this, but it's almost like sometimes people in PR are almost a little bit delusional, because they're like, well, we could spin it another way, and they'd probably still be okay with that. No, we don't care about what you're doing in the trade world, because we know you're just a hot mess express, lining your own pockets. We want to know about, what do you have to say for yourself, you pervert? Okay. His friendship with Epstein would be off limits, but after a long courtship, Thirsk finally agreed to a full-length interview. Sam McAllister, the Newsnight producer who handled the negotiations, remembered talks on 11 November, when Andrew seemed open, confident, energetic, boisterous, and thick-skinned. He was accompanied by his daughter Beatrice, who busily took notes during the 2-hour meeting. Both Donal McCabe, the Queen's communications secretary, and Jason Stein, the Duke's press advisor, were against the interview. Stein recommended a newspaper interview, while Thirsk and the rest of Andrew's family thought it would be an opportunity to clear the air. They agreed to an hour-long face-to-face sit-down with Emily Maitlis. Going against the first rule of PR, no parameters were set about what could be raised. Maitlis and her team drew up questions, and she role-played answers with her editor, Esme Wren. It appears Prince Andrew did not do the same. On the day of the interview, 11 November, Maitlis and her team were allowed to film in the blue drawing room at Buckingham Palace, for which Andrew had supposedly obtained permission from the Queen on the basis that it was a discussion about his official duties and his success with Pitch at Palace. Prince Charles and Camilla were on a 6-day tour of New Zealand, and Sarah was in China, but the Queen watched it alone in her private sitting room at Windsor. The poor dear, to be like, and it's happening in your house. Maitlis later remembered the Duke making small talk before the cameras rolled. He seems at ease, fascinated by the mechanics of the whole process, laughing at the number of cameras Keith and Jonathan have set up. He does not seem particularly nervous. He doesn't seem like a man who's about to decide his own fate in an on-camera interview, because he had no idea. It really did not cross his mind that any hard questions were going to be asked because they never had been, right? He had never been called to task. So he's like, yeah, let's talk about Pitch at Palace. Woohoo. No wonder he seemed at ease because he literally had no idea what was coming. Okay, guys, I got to wipe my nose. Hold on. Okay. The interview started, and Mateless gave the Duke the opportunity to tell 1.7 million live viewers. It was live? I had no idea. Why he was there. Without preamble or anything about his trade envoy work, Andrew went straight to the subject of Jeffrey Epstein. He said he was delighted to be able to see you today and explained that the relationship with Epstein was not about partying. I never have really partied. Well, I mean, that's true. He doesn't drink and he doesn't smoke in that sense. But you can still party. You know, you can still be in a raucous situation. You can still be around people who are doing all those things. You know, you can be doing it other ways, as we know he was. Oh, guys, I'm trying to grow my hair out. My hair used to be down to my waist, okay? And then in February, actually February 14th of 2020, I had a mentee bee. I had a mentee bee. Should I tell you what it was? I'm going to. Okay. Oh, I mean, I'm never going to be so big that people are going to see this. Okay. Famous last words. I have a really good relationship with my ex-husband and his wife, okay? And that took years of work, and it was hard, okay? And she is a blessing to my life, okay? But in the beginning, it was hard. It was really hard. And I got a text that they had decided that the kids should call her mom. And let me tell you, I was so upset. And I started crying, and my best friend was here, sitting on the sofa. I was in the bathroom when I got it. And I came out, and I was like distraught. And she was like, what is it? What is it? And I was just like, started crying. And I walked into the kitchen, and I felt so desperate. I was, you know, like when you're so full of like, I don't know, distress, like you have to do something, you know, like your body is like, you must take action. And I was just looking around like, oh, what am I going to do? And the first thing I saw were the scissors. I had long hair down to my waist. Okay. I just grabbed the scissors and I took a chunk. I just went like this. And then I was like, and then I cried more. And she's like, oh, no, 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 no. We can. And I'm like, no, you can't. We can't hide it. We can't hide it. I just chopped it all off. But then let me tell you, I felt so free. And, you know, I just felt full of pep. And then it kind of became my trademark. Like it was shorter. Now in my profile picture on YouTube, you can probably see it was like up here. It was like a very like a French, I mean, I think it's like, you know, France, 1952, Bob. It was like this shorter. Like, why am I telling you all this? Okay, it was like this. And let me tell you, men started talking to me. Men started asking me out. Like, it was the weirdest thing. I got more male attention after cutting my hair than I ever had when I had hair down to my waist. And they're always telling you that, you know, men like long hair. Well, whatever. I think men just like women. And I had so much confidence. So I think that anyway, I don't even know why I told you that. What was I on? What am I on about? Okay. But because Epstein, a well-connected global financier, could provide useful connections and he could learn from him, Andrew said he had visited Epstein in December 2010 in order to tell him that because he had been convicted, it was inappropriate for us to be seen together. What, so you go on a walk and be seen together? When pressed about Virginia Giuffre, Andrew claimed to have no recollection of ever meeting this lady, none whatsoever, nor of that photograph ever being taken. He added, "As a member of the royal family, I am not one to, as it were, hug, and public displays of affection are not something that I do." He had never been to tramp with her, and he denied sweating profusely, explaining his peculiar medical condition caused by what I would describe as an overdose of adrenaline in the Falklands War when I was shot at, and it was almost impossible for me to sweat. That's my favorite line from the whole, I think, it's the one that everyone knows. It's like, actually, it's like, if that was a thing, wouldn't we hear more about, men who have actually been, okay, he was in active service. I shouldn't say that. But men who have, been in other wars, wouldn't we hear more about this? Like, oh yeah, he has that thing where you can't sweat because adrenaline. He could not have been at Tramp because he had taken Beatrice to a Pizza Express in Woking for a party at about 4 or 5. Which he had remembered going to because going to Woking was a very unusual thing for me to do. So what, he couldn't be at the Tramp nightclub because at 4 p.m. in the afternoon, he was with his daughter at Pizza Express? Well, sir, most people aren't at nightclubs at 4 in the afternoon. They're not even open, usually. What nonsense. Okay. Maitlis asked if he went on to have sex with Virginia Giuffre. "I can absolutely categorically tell you it never happened," Andrew responded. Asked if he regretted his friendship with Epstein, he replied, Now, still not. And the reason being is that the people that I met and the opportunities that I was given to learn either by him or because of him were actually very useful." That's wild. Timothy, what are you up to? He's sitting on the heater. He loves warmth, let me tell you. Don't burn your little bunny paws. Okay. Do I regret the fact that he has quite obviously conducted himself in a manner unbecoming? Unbecoming? That is the understatement of the century. Yes, Andrew said. Now, can you imagine? So this is airing live. I had no idea that it was live. So this is airing live in the Blue Room. I'm acting like I know what that is. In the Blue Room, of all places. My point being, in the Blue Room. And the Queen is also in the palace, in her private quarters, in her apartment, watching this as it happens, watching it on television, knowing it's happening downstairs. Like, as a mother and as a sovereign, can you just imagine probably what she wanted to do more than anything was to run downstairs and be like, "Stop!" Like, I can't even imagine, like, watching it happen in real time and knowing it's happening in your house. I'm surprised she didn't have a heart attack. Oh my God, the poor thing. You know what? I feel so bad because in the last years of her life is when so much turmoil happened. She couldn't even go out, peacefully, like in peace and feel, like when my grandfather passed, I remember he was actively passing. And we were all surrounding him. And I remember my father telling him, he said, "Dad, the circle will remain unbroken. The circle will remain unbroken." Because my grandfather worried about the family so much. And my dad was telling him, like, the family is staying together. The circle will be unbroken. And he passed in peace. And that was true. Like that remains true. And he got to pass in peace knowing that, my father and my mother looked after my grandmother after he was gone until she passed. She stayed in their home. She passed in their home. Like there were nurses who were there with her, like, but, and I have a great relationship with my parents. So, there is so much to be said for being able to pass out of this life, not having to worry, about your family falling apart after you're gone, you know? But her last days were marked by, her favorite son, his life falling apart due to his own poor choices. Her grandson and his wackadoo wife over in the US, not even part of the family, like how heartbreaking and how awful to have to go out. I do believe that God gives grace to us when we need it in the moment and that he can grant peace in the middle of the storm, like 100%. But it just breaks my heart to imagine having to leave this life knowing that there's so much chaos happening. And I just wonder if she felt relief, like, okay, peace out, I'm out, thank God, or if she was troubled. And it just makes me sad, I mean, Andrew should have been taken in hand long before, like he should have never been that trade envoy. Like that was a mess. Anyway, I'm really chatty Cathy today. Meet. Unbecoming, Mateless responded. He was a sex offender. You stayed with him, she said. I stayed with him, and that's the bit that as it were, I kick myself for on a daily basis because it was not something that was becoming to a member of the royal family, and we try and uphold the highest standards and practices, and I let the side down. Simple as that. Okay. The hour-long interview was soon over. Mateless had continually probed him about his relationship with Maxwell, Epstein, and Giuffre. He had rejected every allegation made against him, but admitted they had been a constant sore in the family. Like, hold on. Okay, sorry, I had to just grab... I was folding my laundry. So if you're admitting that it was a constant sore in the family, like, why didn't you stop it sooner? Why didn't you quit it? That makes no sense. Obviously, this whole thing makes no sense because he's just... Okay. The hour-long interview was soon over. Okay. He rejected every allegation, constant sore in the family. Asked if he had anything to add, he replied, "No, I don't think so. I think you've probably dragged out most of what is required, and I'm truly grateful for the opportunity that you've given me to be able to discuss this with you." He is naive, isn't he? Like, he actually... There's something, Afterwards, McAllister asked the Duke's equerry how she thought it had gone. She beamed back at me. "Wasn't he wonderful?" Okay, I don't know who these people are. I would have been standing there like, this is the beginning of the end. Like, he just signed his own death warrant. Like, this is bad. Mateless was given a tour of the palace, including the room in which the Queen had her weekly audiences with her prime ministers. The Duke also seemed pleased, later telling his mother, "I reckon that went pretty well, don't you?" The truth about the Newsnight interview. That is the public story, and several journalists enhanced their careers as a result of that version with books and dramas. The reality is rather different. The BBC had long been investigating Prince Andrew's relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Not in London, but in Northern Ireland. And the key figure was not Emily Mateless or Sam McAllister, but a BBC producer called Laura Burns. Working for the Northern Ireland Panorama office, Burns and assistant producer Olivia Davies had traveled widely in the United States, checking police reports, interviewing Epstein's staff, tracing victims of both him and Prince Andrew, and persuading Virginia Giuffre and her legal team to be interviewed on camera. In Burns' words, the team also found personal email discussions between Ghislaine and Andrew discussing Virginia. The emails between Ghislaine and Andrew didn't exclaim, "It's a fake, I've never met her," or any other questions. Instead, they worked together to build a dossier about Virginia to leak to the media. The investigations were not without problems. The women were followed by private investigators and had the police called on them, and were warned that just because the palace had never sued the BBC before, we shouldn't assume they won't sue now. On 26 August 2019, the Panorama team approached Buckingham Palace seeking an hour-long interview with Prince Andrew to respond to the public allegations and their investigations. As Burns put it, I knew if he gave an interview, he would hang himself, and it would be TV gold. I knew he lived in a world that was not entirely real. That was entirely not real. On 9 September, two members of the office, presenter Dara McIntyre and its boss, Andrew Head, had a meeting at the palace to discuss the request, during which Andrew's team said they had evidence that the photo of Andrew and Virginia was a fake, but they did not offer any evidence of this at this meeting. This was followed by a telephone call on 8 November in which Head explained to the palace that their investigation would continue and a right of reply letter would be sent to Andrew the following week. 4 days after Burns learned that Andrew was not doing an interview with them, but with Newsnight, and that her months of research had to be passed to the Newsnight team. How the interview moved from Panorama to Newsnight is debatable, but the suspicion remains that the palace preferred a straight interview to a right of reply after a hard-hitting investigation. Contrary to the narrative that has been presented, Newsnight, which had only previously discussed an interview to promote Pitch at Palace, had just 72 hours' notice of what would prove a seminal television event. It was Burns who was required to prepare them. She fact-checked their video insert, shared Panorama's script, research, contacts, legal documents, and detailed timelines, fact-checked their questions, and wrote some of the most significant questions of her own. Some of them included pinning Andrew down on whether he would assist the various international investigations into Epstein, and when he last saw Ghislaine Maxwell. Burns knew that an arrest for Ghislaine was imminent, and Prince Andrew was not just someone who was naively friends with one sex offender. He was good friends with two of the most prolific sex traffickers in the world. Burns also checked the veracity of the photograph of him with Virginia Giuffre and shared all of that information freely with the Newsnight team. It was a positive story of collaboration with historically rival departments, Panorama and Newsnight, working together to hold power to account and get the prince's answers on record. Unfortunately, that was where the collaboration ended. Burns's credit was removed from the interview broadcast. There was no mention of her crucial role in the BAFTA submission, in the press, or in any of the subsequent books or films. The single mother who had made the interview coup possible had been written out of the script. That is despicable. You know, she spent like years of her life digging this stuff up, and then it gets passed over to Newsnight and what's her name. And then I haven't heard anything where she's, what's her name? The one who gave the interview? Emily Matlis, whatever. I've seen her give interviews about that interview, and she never, ever once credited Laura Burns. Never once. Gross. That's not being a girl's girl, in my opinion. The Newsnight program, Prince Andrew and the Epstein Scandal, was shown on the BBC on 16 November. The press reaction was instantaneous and unanimous. The Washington Post called it a car crash, while the New York Times reported that experts on the royal family have described the interview as the biggest public relations debacle for the British royal family since the turbulent aftermath of the death of Princess Diana in a car crash in 1997. Like, okay, thank you. I expected a train wreck, tweeted Charlie Proctor, editor of the Royal Central website. That was a plane crashing into an oil tanker, causing a tsunami, triggering a nuclear explosion level bad. 1 second. I have a text message. Okay. Andrew's statements were analyzed and found to be wanting. He claimed to have had no recollection of meeting Giuffre and provided an alibi for the date in question. No one had a recollection of a birthday party in Woking, including his own daughter. A diary entry showed that afternoon he had booked a manicure with a woman called Jean. He claimed not to know where the bar was at Tramp, though it was by the dance floor, and he had been photographed there days after he allegedly took Giuffre. A police protection officer remembered him returning to Buckingham Palace that night, but an attempt to check revealed the security logs were first covered by national security and then had been destroyed. The housekeepers at Sunninghill that weekend could not remember the prince's movements. Experts said there was no known medical condition that made humans unable to sweat, and pictures were produced from 2001 showing Andrew perspiring. After he said the picture with Giuffre must have been doctored because he always wore a suit and tie in London, pictures were produced of him photographed at events in casual clothes. There was skepticism about why it took 4 nights, with a dinner party thrown in his honor, to sever the relationship with Epstein, and in a city bristling with hotels and with the British consulate nearby, that the excuse that it was a convenient place to stay really washed. He claimed he had severed contact with Epstein in 2010, but emails later showed the two were in touch in 2011. He denied he had ever met Virginia Roberts, when there was plenty of evidence linking them, including a verified photograph. His claim not to party or be tactile was exposed with dozens of pictures in the press of him hugging and kissing various women at parties. But Giuffre's statements were also questioned. An investigation by the Daily Mail in December 2020 found that the bath at Maxwell's house, which Giuffre described as freestanding in the middle of the room, was a standard size, 5 foot 6 inches by 2 foot 4 inches alcove bath, boxed in on 2 sides by walls and on a third by the back of an airing cupboard. In her deposition and memoir, The Billionaire Playboys Club, Giuffre claimed she and Andrew had an alcoholic cocktail at Tramp, though it is well known he does not drink. In fact, there are repeated accounts of his occasionally drinking alcohol. For the article, 3 of his former equerries were interviewed, with one of them stating, "The idea of him dancing like that with all eyes on him is unimaginable." She also recalled moving his hands across the curves of my body, not to shy away from the fact that he was in public. He was whispering sweet nothings into my ear and kissing my neck. I would just giggle, not really knowing how to reply to an aging man with a bad smile and terrible moves. There were always paparazzi outside the club, but none of the dozen picture agencies then covering Tramp had any record of him entering or leaving. That said, few pictures have emerged of him dancing at China White, where he was a regular. The interview, rather than killing the story, inflamed it. Alicia Stone, who worked at Tramp for 6 months, remembered Andrew dancing all night with a girl who looked like she could be his daughter. They were practically going at it on the dance floor. All the while he was grabbing her tight, pouring his sweat all over her. He was dripping from dancing so much. Another Tramp employee, Andrew Wall, heard colleagues talking about Prince Andrew groping some waif-like teenage girl. It sounded like they were practically having sex on the dance floor. One of my colleagues told me at one point he saw Andrew biting the poor girl's neck and pulling her hair while they danced together very close. A London woman, Shukri Walker, came forward and told the Sun newspaper that she remembered the prince with a young girl. She was supported by a second witness, represented by lawyer Lisa Bloom, who recalled that Prince Andrew was smiling and seemed to be happy and Virginia was not. Bloom offered the witnesses to the FBI, who said they were not interested. Pressure was put on Scotland Yard to explain its decision not to investigate a complaint from Giuffre in July 2015 that she had been trafficked to the United Kingdom in 2001 to have sex with the Duke in London. The force claimed they were not the appropriate authority to investigate because it would be largely focused on activities and relationships outside the UK. Sigrid Macaulay, who represented Giuffre and other survivors, knew the Newsnight interview had been a red rag to a bull. To have to sit there in front of the television and have Prince Andrew not take responsibility and go on national TV and say, "She's wrong, I don't even remember her," that's very offensive to a victim of sexual trafficking. Virginia Giuffre gave an hour-long interview to Panorama, which was broadcast in December. "I'm calling BS on this because that's what it is," she said. "He knows what happened. I know what happened. And there's only one of us telling the truth. And I know that's me." She now began the legal process, which would ultimately destroy the prince's career and reputation. stepping back. The Queen maintained her public support, deliberately being photographed riding with her second son in the grounds of Windsor Castle. The Duchess posted on her Instagram account that Andrew is a true and real gentleman and is stoically steadfast to not only his duty, but also his kindness and goodness of always seeing the best in people. I am deeply supportive and proud of this giant of a principled man that dares to put his shoulder to the wind and stands firm with his sense of honor and truth. If that's what you really thought he was, why didn't you stay married to him? My God, if, listen, sometimes my man drives me crazy. And sometimes, we all have days in our relationship where we're like, oh my God, I should just walk out of this right now. But let me tell you, he is so principled and I trust him with my life. Like, I know if anything happened to me, I know he would come after me, I don't mean that in a scary way. I mean, like, if something bad happened to me, he would not rest. Like, I would, wherever I was, I would just rest easy. I'd be like, that's okay. I know he's on the way. Like, I have no fear that he would protect me, and I have no doubts about the kind of man he is at all. Right? And listen, when you have like a hard time and you're like, oh my God, that comes to my mind. And I'm like, no, I will see this through till my very last breath because I know who he is. I know what he is. And that is so precious to me. So to me, I'm like, if this is what you're saying, you don't give up a man like that. If this is the kind of man he really is. So all that to say, baloney. Because, we as women, I mean, unless you're a complete nutter, which obviously she probably is, if you find a good one, you don't let him go, you white knuckle it. Okay. But it was clear that something had to be done. The 98-year-old Prince Philip summoned his son to Wood Farm at Sandringham and told him that for the sake of the monarchy, he would have to relinquish his royal duties. The official palace message read, "It has become clear to me over the last few days that the circumstances relating to my former association with Jeffrey Epstein has become a major disruption to my family's work and the valuable work going on in the many organizations and charities that I am proud to support. Therefore, I have asked Her Majesty if I may step back from public duties for the foreseeable future, and she has given her permission." Like, oh yes, it's always his idea. KPMG, which was paying £100,000 a year, Barclays, Bosque, and Standard Chartered withdrew their sponsorship of Pitch at Palace. BT said it could no longer continue as a partner with the Inspiring Digital Enterprise Award. Andrew stepped down as patron of more than 230 organizations, and a visit to meet flood-hit communities in the north of England was cancelled. In December 2019, the Duke was asked to stand down from Pitch at Palace. Pitch at Palace CIC was wound down by the trustees as having no future after the Epstein scandal and concerns about the dividing line between the Duke's charitable work and his business interests. However, he refused to give up Pitch at Palace Global, which led several directors to offer their resignations. Mark Eves and Hanandi Jabato on 19 November. David Stern, who had often accompanied Andrew on his special representative visits, on 9 December. Alex Johnston on 6 January 2020, and Martin Harriman, one of his best friends from the Navy, now a telecoms entrepreneur, and Martin Dunnett, a private equity executive, on 19 January. Amanda Thirsk resigned on 31 March and Johan Eliask on 4 January 2021. Only his accountant, Arthur Lancaster, remained a director. Thirsk had been instrumental in arranging the Newsnight interview. A Prince Andrew staff member explained that Amanda was the only person Andrew listened to. Well, there's an unsung hero. Even though she probably had no idea what she was getting him into. Nobody else was able to get through to him. It took many weeks to talk the Duke into it, but Amanda would not back down. I remember seeing them walking one late afternoon, and Andrew broke down in tears, said the staff member. He told Amanda he didn't like being put on the spot, and that there was absolutely no way to predict how the interview would go. In over a decade working for the Duke, the courtier had never seen him break down like this. The Queen's second son became distraught, emotional. Amanda had some sort of spell on Andrew. There's no way anyone, even the Queen, would have been able to convince Andrew to do the interview. He finally agreed after Amanda gave him a personal guarantee that the interview would be positive and would silence all of his critics forever. Thirsk was forced out with a settlement that included buying her silence and help securing a 6-figure job with JD, China's powerful e-commerce group. It was fixed through a pitch at palace contact Yang Tenbo, who, as would come to light, was a crucial business contact of the prince. Baron of Houston. I'm just looking ahead to see how big this section is. Okay, let's go. The Duchess had her own Chinese links. In July 2017, she had become a non-executive director of a Hong Kong-based venture capital company, Gate Ventures, chaired by an Anglo-Chinese entrepreneur, Dr. Johnny Han, who was expanding into the US, UK, and China. This directorship was now to lead to high court action brought by Chinese investors against the company and claims that it had given misleading information about loans provided to Ginger and Moss, a company founded by the Duchess, and that of the £24 million raised from shareholders, £19 million had been lost. Wow. A newspaper investigation revealed lavish spending at Gate, unusual transactions with offshore companies, and deals involving its directors, including a loan to former boyfriend Manuel Fernandez's company, Voosh, in which the Duchess had invested. Han, who also called himself Baron of Houston, had received a doctorate in psychiatry from Hughes Hall in Cambridge in 1998. After working in banking, he established... Well, isn't that interesting? So he was a medical doctor? Because you have to be a medical doctor in order to be a doctor of psychiatry. You behave yourself, boy. So I'm just making sure he's not going to start chewing on my laptop cord. Timmy, you stop that. Smart enough. Okay. Sorry for the delay. Okay, where were we? Oh yeah. After working in banking, he established an international venture capital company, Global Group International Holdings, with a wide portfolio of interests across many sectors. He had been the executive producer with Michael Grade, who was to become another director of Gate on Sunset Boulevard, starring Glenn Close, and of the West End musical 42nd Street, and had been one of the guests at Princess Eugenie's wedding. Han said the Duchess's main role in the directorship was to introduce a few people to me in Hong Kong. According to a company statement, she was expected to oversee the group's investment portfolio in the entertainment sector and assist with identifying new entertainment projects for the group as it continues to expand. In short, to use her contacts, most importantly David Tang, and status to bring in foreign investors. Between June 2017 and October 2018, she was paid £72,000 and required to attend a minimum of 2 board meetings a year, as well as company functions. On top of director fees, she received £200,000 for marketing and promotion from an offshore bank in St. Vincent and the Grenadines in 2017. Allegedly relating to her role at Gate Ventures. The bank, the European Commerce Bank, chaired by another Gate director, Jeff Morrow, went into voluntary liquidation in 2019. According to an ex-worker at the bank, it did not do a single transaction in her time there. 3 months later, the Duchess received a £90,000 loan signed off by Dr. Han for Ginger and Moss, which operated an online joint venture with Gate, though they were in completely different industries. Interesting. Her spokesman said the payments, totaling £290,000, were loans from Gate Venture to help get Ginger and Moss off the ground, but Gate Ventures was listed as a dormant company, and there is no public record of the loans. Gate Ventures CEO Jeff Morrow, a former songwriter who penned Can't Smile Without You for Barry Manilow, was also a director of Ginger and Moss. What is happening? Why is this world of business so strange? Okay. Gate Ventures lost £5.1 million in 2017 and £9.8 million in 2018. Hahn had a track record of employing members of the royal family to act as brand ambassadors. Peter Phillips was a paid business partner and helped Dr. Hahn launch a horse racing venture in Hong Kong in 2018, and his sister Zara Tyndall had been paid £100,000 a year for being a non-executive director of Hahn's Global Group between August 2016 and March 2018. At first, her lawyer described any links as wholly untrue, but admitted her role after the Mail provided documentary evidence of the £100,000 a year contract. Hahn gave generously to the Duke of Edinburgh's World Fellowship, but courted controversy when it was revealed that a members club he was launching claimed to offer Christmas dinner with Prince Philip at Buckingham Palace. When challenged, Dr. Hahn explained the promotional material had been published in error. In January 2020, it was disclosed that Hahn had charged nearly £3 million in expenses in a 16-month period in 2017 and 2018, while the Duchess was on the board of Gate, including £4,050 for a private tour of Ground Zero in New York, £4,000 for a piano lesson, £4,000 for a 1-hour training session with Brazilian model and actress Adriana Lima, £16,000 for a Bastille Day reception with President Macron, £6,500 for lunch with Tommy Hilfiger, £10,000 for a meeting with Prince Harry at a Coldplay concert, and £8,000 for tea with the Duchess of York. That is not the purpose for which these small Chinese investors paid their money into the company, pointed out Judge Sebastian Prentice, who ruled Gate should be put into administration. Dr. Hahn stressed that all activities charged to the company were for the benefit of Gate and were legitimate business expenses, adding, "No part of the spending was for my personal benefit or personal enjoyment. It was hard, often exhausting, but necessary work." Like, yes, I'm sure going to a Coldplay concert with Prince Harry would be exhausting. How did Dr. Hahn meet the Duchess? The following questions were put to Dr. Hahn. How did Dr. Hahn meet the Duchess? How often have they met? Where and when? Does she continue to have a commercial relationship with him or one of his companies? Has he met the Duke of York? Has he or one of his companies ever had any business dealings with the Duke? On what occasions has he met their daughters? Have they been involved with him and his companies professionally or just socially? What duties did the Duchess undertake as a non-executive director of Global Group Entertainment Limited? Who did she introduce to Dr. Hahn? For what period did she work for the company? How much money was paid to the Duchess for her services? How much money was lent to the Duchess, and how much repaid, and when? When was the £90,000 loan to the Duchess repaid? In return for the £200,000 paid to the Duchess, what did the Duchess do? Or was it a loan which was repaid? Was the film in which she was an associate producer ever made? The vice president responsible for PR at Global Group International Holdings replied, "We appreciate your interest to speak with Dr. Hahn. However, he would like to kindly decline participation in the interview on this occasion." No kidding. Perhaps for good reasons. Apart from bankrolling the royals, Hahn had close associations with the political elites of North Korea and China, and used royal associations to promote his business interests, first in Britain and then in America, where he now lives. Though Hahn was educated in Britain and has a British passport, he returned to Hong Kong to work as a private banker just as the Chinese government took control, and where he became involved with and between 2019 and 2023 was vice chairman of the pro-Beijing New People's Party. His links with China are strong. He was a senior advisor and committee member up to the Foreign Policy Research Center, China Foundation for International and Strategic Studies, and a committee member of the People's Political Consultative Conference. Court documents state that MI5 regard the CPPCC as central to China's United Front Work Department, UFWD, and show the FBI has said the group enforces the rules and regulations of the Communist Party abroad. Han is an economic advisor for Jilin, the province that forms part of the border with North Korea. The main oil pipeline between China and North Korea goes through Jilin, and has also acted as an economic advisor to the People's Government of Yuyao City in Zhejiang Province. One of his business ventures, Global Education Group, aimed to find temporary work for the several hundred Chinese students attending British universities each year. The only people who knew the location of these students was the Chinese government, which would have had to supply Han with such lists. In turn, it would be useful for the Chinese government to know where every student was working. Han's association with North Korea goes back to the purchase of one of its banks in 2004, impossible unless the North Koreans felt he had the blessing of Beijing. He holds an honorary Doctor of Economics from the country, and between 2008 and 2012 was chairman of the International Kim Second Sung Foundation. He also established the Korea Johnny Han Education Fund, which many suspect was used to channel money out of North Korea to pay for the education of the children of the North Korean leader in the West. This guy. In 2011, Han acted as a middleman for David Rowland, who was keen to act as a banker to the family of Kim Jong-un and major state-owned industries. Why in the world would you... Okay, anyway. They also discussed investment in North Korea's gold and iron ore mines. Revenue from the mines funds its nuclear weapons program. So close were Han's ties to the ruler that the airport was kept open until 3 a.m. for his flight home. According to Clive Hamilton, a global authority on China, Han has held a number of positions and organizations at the center of the Communist Party's United Front system for exerting influence abroad. Hamilton added, members of the royal family have shown themselves to be babes in the wood when offered cash by Chinese businessmen. Don't their alarm bells ring just a bit? Yeah, exactly. That's what I've been thinking. Like, hello? Like, anything in there? Anyone? Or like we said, just a single ping pong ball bouncing around the corners of the cranium. When offered cash by... Dr. Han told the Mail that interactions with royal family members and any other UK public figures were entirely professional, above board, not carried out at the direction or instigation of any third party, and completely unrelated to any concept of penetrating the establishment. Well, just because you say it doesn't make it so. Okay, we're going to have to stop there because I've got a million things to do. First thing on my list, I have to go buy toilet paper because let me tell you, if I come home tonight and I have the same experience in the evening, well, that's just going to ruin my day. All right, well, thank you so much for being with me. I am so happy every day that you join me. I feel so blessed. And I hope you have a fabulous day. We're going to be going into our weekend soon, so that's... Thank goodness. I have so much cleaning to do today. It's like I let everything go to pot this week. All right. Well, that's what I have ahead of me. I will be back tomorrow to read the next portion. And, I am tempted to just sit down and do a really long read and just finish off the rest of this. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Because, sometimes I get into it and I'm like, okay, I've had enough. Time to move on. Anyway, just remember, Sunday, we're going to do our first Silver Screen Sundays. And I'm really excited. And I hope it's fun. And I hope it's not just a big snooze fest. But anyway, I will see you soon. Have a fabulous day. Mwah.